All right, welcome back. Now, against the backdrop of a sluggish economy, high cost of living, a worsening tax regime, and a job market that is unable to absorb eager workers, it is becoming increasingly difficult to make ends meet. Well, tonight we have Cabinet Secretary for Labor and Social Protection, Honorable Florence Bore, to give answers on what the government is doing to remedy the ailing labor sector. Waziri, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you, Vicky.
No, absolutely. I think let's begin by painting a picture for Kenyans in terms of what the unemployment situation looks like right now in the country.
Thank you, Vicky. I just want to say the unemployment in this country is really dire. We have very many youths who have graduated. They are at home. They don't have jobs. And it is Kenya Kwanza government's plan to ensure that we get these jobs for these Kenyans. And we are looking at a figure of about 5 million youths who have already finished various courses, be it in diploma, degrees, and in every home you'll always have about 1 to 5 graduates. And it is the focus of this government to ensure that we create jobs for Kenyans, both locally and internationally.
You mentioned 5 million. I'm assuming most of that number is young people.
Yes.
So let's talk about that demographic and how the government is looking at engaging them and absorbing them in some sort of an activity.
Government is trying. The other day, teachers were employed, about 56,000. So those opportunities that we get within Kenya cannot match the big number that we have outside there. So we are looking at various sectors to be able to get jobs. And you've heard the president talk about this. We have the housing project, where we are going to absorb about 130,000 of these Kenyans. Maybe those who are doing plumbing, wiring, masonry, and we have those graduates that come from the diploma colleges and the universities. And we have, as government, a deliberate move to ensure that we get these jobs for the youth. Now, apart from the housing project, we also have the digital jobs. And ICT hubs are going to be set up in every ward in this country, just to ensure that we have most of these youths that have digital skills be able to get online jobs, maybe sourced from foreign countries and even within Kenya. We also have opportunities that you can find even in the environment, in the green jobs, where we can have youths, focusing on that area and get some jobs within the environmental space. We also have fisheries. We also have marine. They can be able to get those jobs within that area. And then, of course, we have the labor migration, where we are focusing on various countries. We are doing bilateral labor agreements with those foreign countries just to be able to get jobs for them. Our government has also created opportunities in terms of giving internships to the youth. And we have the Public Service Commission that has already provided about 8,000 opportunities for the youth to be able to get some skills and be able to know what goes on in government. So various ministries have got interns that are able to do that. We are also encouraging the private sector to be able to take some of these youths into internship. So we have a plan. We are deliberate. We must get these jobs for the youth of this country. And just for you to know and for Kenyans to know, why we are focusing on labor migration is because even the few Kenyans that we have outside there, about 4 million of them, the kind of remittances that we get from them, it's very high. And it has even overtaken a foreign exchange that we get from coffee, from tea, from tourism. So, and other countries are also taking those opportunities. Talk, for instance, of Saudi Arabia. They have 1 million Filipinos working in Saudi Arabia. We only have about 150,000. And the opportunities are more. They are being created. Cities are being set up in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So opportunities outside there are many. And I'm not just saying it is only Saudi Arabia where we can get opportunities. Currently, we have bilateral labor agreements with Qatar, with Saudi Arabia, United Kingdom. We also have new ones that are ongoing with 19 countries.
And we'll get to that, Waziri, because I want to go back to something you said in terms of absorbing young people, especially in the public sector. Of course, we saw last week PSC had released a report saying nearly 20,000 ghost workers were found in government. And one would think, those would have been gainful employment opportunities had they been filled by actual people. How do you weed out that issue of corruption, especially in a place like the public sector, beyond talking about private sector and opening up jobs there?
The opportunities that are there have always been publicized. You'll find them in the websites, you'll find them in the newspapers, especially the Star. Those opportunities have been advertised publicly for Kenyan youths to access them. What we are only saying is that those opportunities are not enough for our Kenyan youth. They'll take some small percentage, but the majority, we would want to create jobs for them. Let them focus outside there. And my advice is for Kenyan youth to kindly log into the website of the National Employment Authority, where we post all the job opportunities that we get from outside the country. We have what we call the job orders. So usually we put it in that platform. The youth can access those jobs and they can be matched with the opportunities that are there outside Kenya.
But that hardly deals with the corruption issue and ghost workers in government, though.
Yes.
How so?
Because I've said they're publicly given out. And we don't encourage any corruption. We don't encourage any youth to remove any money before they are given a job. Yes? And you've seen even the interior and the defense, when they were able to advertise those jobs, when they were recruiting them, you could see there were people who were watching out for anybody who would want to do corruption or to be able to gain something over a job.
So this is something that you feel should be done at the recruitment level, I think. So we're not spending too much time there. Let's shift focus to, so beyond the pain of those who are unemployed, there's also the employed. Pay slips are shrinking, Waziri. And this is under the weight of a very heavy tax regime. There's still more deductions that are yet to hit the pay slip. And there's concerns that we're going to move into that territory of less than a third of gross pay. That's what Kenyans will be taking home at a point. I saw a newspaper article saying there's no more room left to deduct at a point. So, when you're looking at the challenges facing the Kenyan worker now, who is earning a living, it appears with all of these changes and all of these shifts, they're not necessarily being heard in terms of the challenges they're facing.
Thank you, Vicky. I would want to say we have talks that are ongoing. We usually have the tripartite talks between government, the employers, and the workers, just to agree. And the economic situation that we have in Kenya doesn't just happen to Kenya. It's worldwide. Just the other day, I had someone who was coming from Germany and was telling me how life is very expensive in Germany. But when he came home to Kenya, he was like, Kenya is even much better. It is not as bad as what they see in other countries. So this economic situation that we have in the country, I'm sure happens all over. And we are saying, even as for us to be able to do any development in this country, we need to pay taxes. Yes, let's appreciate that. But going forward, I see a hope. I see a better situation because of the changes that are ongoing in government.
Some of those changes, some would argue, is seeing people take less and less of their pay home. The Employment Act is very clear and categorical. It prohibits employers from deducting more than 2/3 of basic pay of an employee.
True.
But yet we're seeing people going home with less. Who is advocating for the worker at a time like this, beyond telling them this is just what you have to do?
So we are, as I said, we will still go forward and have talks and see how we can improve the situation within the workspace, just to ensure that our workers are able to take something home. And mine is to say negotiations should continue. Dialogue between government, employers, and workers should continue, just for us to have a favorable environment for all of us to work in.
And what form should those negotiations take, in your opinion, that would see the situation improve?
As a ministry, we'll provide a conducive environment
for
these talks to happen.
What does that conducive environment look like, ideally, for the worker?
It's good. It's, we look forward. We have structures where we have the discussions on that. We have the National Labour Board that also brings the parties onto the table to be able to discuss.
Well, that some would debate that a lot of those deliberations have not worked in favor of the Kenyan worker, but it's yet to be seen if those deliberations actually yield fruit. But let's move to labor and migration issues. And you talked about some of the bilateral agreements that have already been signed. I believe 4 so far that you had mentioned.
Yes.
And at least 19 now that are yet to be finalized. But what do these bilateral agreements seek to achieve for Kenyan workers here?
What happens with the bilateral labor agreements? They are actually worker-friendly. Ours is to ensure that the workers are given their rights, the workers are paid well, the workers, the contractual obligations that are there, we ensure that the worker is protected. So these bilateral agreements are really there for the sake of a migrant worker, to ensure that they are protected, they are given their rights, they are paid well, they are able to work within the required timelines. Some of them are usually overworked, but we ensure that they work within the right timelines. And then they also should be paid well. Like you see, the nurses that we are recruiting, we have had to negotiate for their salaries before they are taken to Saudi Arabia.
Of course, we know government had put in some measures to deal with the situation and the crisis in the Gulf nations.
Yes.
And I'll just kind of take you through a checklist, if you will, of what government said it would do. So there was the wage protection program. Has that been put in place for workers in the Gulf states?
Yes.
What does that look like for them?
You want to know the figures? For instance, for the nurse, the nurse will earn about 150,000 per month, especially that new nurse, maybe with 1 year experience. If you have more years of experience, then you get a better pay above that 150,000.
Okay. A distress alert line for them to reach out to, was that put in place?
Yes. As a ministry, we already have a free toll line where they can be able to reach us out when they have distress, when they have issues, when they're in those foreign countries. And the toll-free line is 0800 22 223.
Okay. And that's also accompanied by a...
And then apart from that, we also have labor attaches.
Okay.
We have our embassies where they can be able to reach out to them.
There was concern about, especially for workers who would go to the Gulf states and their visa being linked to a specific employer.
Yes.
If they were to leave that situation, they would be out of status, if you will.
True.
And it was found that many Kenyan workers were in that category. One of the measures that the government wanted to put in place is to allow employees to change employers. Has that been worked out yet?
Yes, we have addressed that issue. And we've told them if a Kenyan migrant worker has an issue, then authorities need to be told. Our embassy there, our labor attaché, and also, some of those changes we cannot make them because those are some of the laws that they have in Saudi Arabia. But we are there to protect them. We are there to strengthen them, to strengthen the issues around there. And I'll tell you, apart from having our foreign office, apart from having the BLAs, we also ensure that their welfare is taken care of. They're able to be brought back to Kenya if they're in problems. And that has been sorted out. And I believe there will be less issues between the migrant worker and the employer. And apart from that, Vicky, we also have a system that we want to track this worker. When they leave Kenya, up to where they go, we get to know who the employer is and track even the period when they are there to know whether they are doing well or not. So we'll have an integrated system where we are able to track this worker and know their well-being while they're in that country.
We ran out of time, Waziri, but there's one pressing question here, and I see Gadambe who is asking on X, why would you focus so much on getting nurses jobs abroad while hospitals here are still heavily understaffed? Again, it's speaking to that issue of a brain drain. So as much as we are opening up opportunities for health workers outside, the health sector is suffering quite a bit locally. So what can be done to deal with that?
We are doing a national skills mapping just to know the kind of skills that we have in this country, how many nurses, for instance, we have. And we have the Kenya National Council that deal with the nurses. And before we take any nurses outside there, they give us the numbers, how they look like. So they have employed, they have the pool. And if you remember, we had graduates from the Kenya Medical Training College. This year alone, they graduated about 22,000. How many more are out there that have not been employed? So there's no drain at all. We have enough pool for our local absorption and also for export.
Okay, so we'll see how that export of jobs will go for the Kenyan labor market. But thank you once again for your time, Waziri. Wish we had more of it to delve into more issues. But let's take a short break here on Citizen Weekend. Much more ahead, including.
Thank you.